Good afternoon and welcome to the live edition today. Our guest is the esteemed Sean Gilbert. He is the executive director at the Tennessee Valley Housing Services, previously the Morristown Housing Authority, and the incoming senior vice president of the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials, NARO. Sean, thank you for joining us today. Sean's been a long time friend and a client in a couple of places, and primarily I look up to him for his passion for public housing and all things Naro. Sean, welcome.
Thanks, AV. Thanks, Megan. It's always a pleasure to talk to you guys. It's always a fun conversation.
Yeah, so I want to. I know you've been on the podcast and the live before, but I really want to focus today on the national stage, the state of housing in the U.S. and what NARO is doing and how you see things unfolding. Of course, our angle is technology and modernization and operational excellence, and we are always trying to find new and novel ways of serving the market. Also, we've observed the month of August as Public Housing Month, just to promote the services you all offer and the challenges you face. So I'm glad we got you on the last day of Public Housing Month. It's a great
Yes.
way to end this promotion. Um, Go ahead, Sean.
But this is perfect because it's also for NARO August Advocacy Month. So it allows me to advocate a little bit with our partners, which I definitely consider you guys are a partner. And it allows me to talk about our programs and what's going on at the national level. And all month long, so we've been hitting up our congressmen and our senators and the president and everyone else to advocate for our people and our programs. So this is a great tie-in, and it's the last day of the month. So I'm glad we were able to get it during your public housing event. And it's just so great that you're doing that because so many people don't even want to talk about public housing, don't want to talk about affordable housing, which is really the backbone of this country, and all the things that it provides for our communities. So I appreciate you guys putting the spotlight on this.
Thank you, Sean. And I've seen you on the campaign trail for the last two plus years that you've been running for office, and I know it's a volunteer office for an industry organization, but just I've seen your passion firsthand because you have a day job at a significant housing authority that's going through its own changes. Tell us about your campaign and what you ran on, and now that you are the incoming senior VP, what your plans are.
Sure. It's only really been about a year. It probably seems about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And the people that follows me on social media, I'm sure it seems like 10 years. But it's been a great experience over the last year. I've really been, I grew up in a railroad home. My parents were railroad. My dad was a railroader. My uncle was a railroader. My grandfather on my dad's side was a conductor on the railroad for years and years. My mother's side of the family were all coal miners. So I grew up watching these people struggle and work and die young due to a variety of issues. I grew up in an area that was very, very poor in southern West Virginia. So I saw the need for community and people helping each other growing up. I saw the need for diversity because when you think of southern West Virginia, you don't think about diversity, but it was a town of have-nots. Literally people were trained in to work in the coal mines and to die in the coal mines from the Middle East, from Eastern Europe, from Ireland, from the southern cotton fields. So it was a real bringing together of multiple identities that I grew up in. But the one thing we had in common is we were all pretty poor. So we survived through community by relying on each other, by realizing a communal way of what's mine is yours and yours is mine, and taking care of each other. So many men died early in those professions, and the community stepped up and took care of the remaining members. So it's just so important, and I have always thought that was important for us as I look forward. So I based my campaign with NARO, which is the largest advocate for housing redevelopment officials in the nation. On STEAM,
I
STEAM,
loved it. Yeah.
yeah. So STEAM is energy, STEAM is power, and STEAM is direction. So we want to take NARO and we want to take that power and energy and direction and influence on a national level um, policies that will affect us on the local level and the community level so that we can better serve our customers. So I won't go through all the campaign spiel. Everybody's heard that over and over again. And we're getting ready to go into a presidential cycle that everybody will get sick of quickly as well. So, but I just think it's an opportune time to work with because we are in an affordable housing crisis in this country. We do not have enough. I could lease up units all day. So we spend literally the day thinking about how do we expand and improve our portfolio and how do we expand and improve the way we operate and work with our customers to make sure that they're served in the best way so that they can achieve sufficiency.
Sean, during your campaign, what were some of the most common challenges that the public housing agencies that you spoke with, what were they facing? What were some common themes of challenges?
Well, one of the common things was really just the aging out and the graying of the industry to a large
Yeah.
degree. Outside of the challenges with HUD, which I'll touch on in a second, we have so many people that have gray in their beard, like I do, that have been doing this for a long time, but they've left.
Mm-hmm.
So we're bringing in a whole. When I travel around and I go to regional conferences or state conferences to talk to them, I always ask how many first-time attendees are in the room, and invariably anywhere from 20 to 50 or 55% of the room will stand up. So that creates a unique obstacle in that we have lost a lot of traditional knowledge, but it also provides a lot of opportunity because now we have new ideas. Now we have people that can step in and say, let's, there's better and newer ways to do this.
Right.
So we got to engage them. We got to light their fire. Many years ago, when I realized this is what I wanted to do, I realized this is my passion, helping people and putting roofs over people's heads and building communities for our customers and our residents. We need to instill that. We're trying to put that into these younger professionals because once they get that, they don't want to leave this industry because it's such a rewarding industry. For when I drive around town and I can look up and I say, I don't know if that resident's there with the Section 8 house or not, but there might be somebody that's sleeping in there tonight that wouldn't because of what have a solid place, safe place to sleep because of what we do. Just rewarding, really, really a way that I can sleep better at night. The other issue is, HUD is just changing the game so quickly. There's an onslaught of acronyms with us: Inspire, Affordable AFFH, new inspection protocol, FAWA. I mean, I could go on and on. They're changing the way we input everything. Everything we do, they're changing. And not that that's bad in individual pieces, but they're trying to do it all at once. So people are overwhelmed, staff is overwhelmed. We're facing the same shortages nationwide in staffing that everyone else is while we're trying to make these changes, while we're trying to provide quality homes and services to our residents.
And how much of that, and it's a great point, staffing shortages drive a lot of things. And we were in a meeting this morning that's not public housing but related. It was the permit process for a city, and they're backed up because they don't have the staffing to provide the permits that would lead to affordable housing or any kind of housing in a place like even in a place like Knoxville, where we're seeing a lot of new influx, and people are looking for not just housing but housing they can afford. What role does technology play, and how do you see it? I mean, we've seen it together, right, in the last 10 years, how agencies have stumbled to implement technologies that would sort of buffer them from the loss of knowledge or staffing. What can we do differently as a service provider and as housing authorities in the next 5 years to make sure that we take advantage of this moment where you're not just going to throw uh, bodies at this problem, right? You can't find them, and if you do, they don't want to do the work. but yet you have this AI component in this world now, and no one knows how this is going to work out. What do you see, and what are you seeing in the industry?
Well, we're at a unique, almost a tipping point when
Hmm.
it comes to all of this in our industry, and I think across the industries across the nation. You know, we look at everything. How we start with the first question is, will this be beneficial to our customers or our potential customers? And if the answer to that is yes, then we start looking at how does it benefit staff and make us more efficient. Then we look at the cost factor. So all three of them go together. So usually when we look at this, we can find ways to make this beneficial to all, because as we've gone through this last 4 years, 3.5 years with COVID, we become more efficient, we become more nimble, we become more fluid. So we're able to provide services in a much better way than we were, and it's due mostly to technological advances, in the way we provide our services, the way we provide our, the way we talk and communicate with our residents and our potential applicants. We always think now about safety, whether it's the rise in violence in this country, whether it's COVID and the potential for more viruses or whatever it is. We provide our services now in a much more efficient, quick manner, because we can get you what you need and you can get us what we need almost instantaneously. So I think the direction that we're going in is going to provide for a better customer service experience, because they will be able, and they are being able, to communicate with us almost any time of the day. I get emails all the time, whether it's 2 in the morning on a Sunday or whenever it is. Customers first, and we provide that for them, and they take advantage of it. Now we have our unique obstacles also in the fact that we have many of our people are aging, elderly, disabled, and they don't necessarily like or understand or want the technological advancements.
Yeah.
And we also have the financial component of a family of five that can afford one smartphone, and they're all trying to use it, or they're trying to use it for their homework and they can't use it. So we got to always think customer first, and okay, we might have to just have you come in and walk you through the process on our computer, or we might have to realize we're going to have to sit down with you and fill this out. We have a large Spanish-speaking community here in Morristown proper, so we provide everything we can in the Spanish language. You can easily go on our website, flip to Spanish. You can come in. We have, although this isn't technological, we have bilingual staff at our front desk so that we can provide those services. So we always look at everything through the customer service lens and community building lens. And I think in the long run, we will get there, and we will be, we're 10 times more efficient now. We can transition quickly to a hybrid model or a remote model that we couldn't 3 or 4 years ago,
Right.
and still provide most of the same services. I think that's going to continue. The scary things are, data breaches. We're always concerned about that. We're always looking at that. And AI. AI is going to be a great thing, but it's a scary thing because it can be used in so many different ways. Right now, we could take this meeting and this talk we're having and go to some form of AI and you guys are probably doing this, have the transcript literally by the time we hang the phone up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of efficiency does that save in that I don't have to have staff doing that now?
Well, and for customer service, like you mentioned, it again, my mind's blown by how many applications there are to this technology, and for you mentioned multilingual staff. Like when we worked with a housing agency in San Jose, California, they had 20 different languages they were supporting, and so they had to have caseworkers for each language. And if that person leaves, then you can't service this person that doesn't speak English. That's one very low hanging fruit, to use an often used term that can be deployed.
Yeah,
Um,
and we love low hanging fruit
yeah.
because that allows us to make advancements while we're taking the ones where that are harder to get to or more expensive or just whatever the implementation delay or obstacle is. We want to always be showing our customers and our community that we're moving forward.
Yeah, I think AI is a good tool for research as well, Sean. I keep going back to that family of five that you mentioned earlier, the one who maybe they only have access to one cell phone or they don't have access to a computer, right? Are there potential nonprofits that you all could partner with that could offer your residents some of those things or access to some of those things? And what are the laws around that? You could ask AI and it would pop up a ton of options, hopefully, for you. But I think AI would be a good research tool for that outside the box thinking when it comes to public housing.
Yeah. And, it always seems like we talk about that outside the box stuff all the time here, because the public housing world has been stuck in the box. Nobody wants to get out of the box. Now with asset repositioning and with everything we can do, we can mold our organizations into a more viable product. So it's sort of funny you mentioned that sort of thing, because just last week we had a ribbon cutting here on a new resource center that we have that, we want to provide. We have computers in there. We need to get more staffing there, but we have staffing there through a program called Ready by 6, which is getting our families, not just our kids, ready by the time they're 6. That these kids are ready when they go into first grade. But it's more holistic in that we want the family to be ready.
Right.
If you have a kid that you're getting there, but you haven't gotten the mom and dad there, they're understanding, because we have a lot of young kids that are parents now. What they need to do, living in a safe, stable environment. So we're working through all this, and you're exactly right. AI is a way. It's just sort of funny. They're meshing people's music together now on AI.
They are, yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah,
Crazy.
you could say, let's AI, give me an idea. I have to do a lot of speeches, and a lot of them are canned, but I've thought about having AI write a speech for me and just see how it turns out. But when I talk, I always go off course and I veer from the heart instead of AI, so I'll worry about that. But it's just an interesting time, but it's an exciting time. I hope there's no John Connors out there that have to be used against the AI machine. But
who knows? We're not. Yeah, we'll be ready because we know how it goes down. Hey, we have an audience question. Kent says, seems like HUD really wants housing authorities to think like entrepreneurs these days. How does that work given the limited ERP tools or any kinds of tools that are available for housing authorities?
That's a good question. You're exactly right. HUD talks about us being entrepreneurs, and Congress has actually come through with better funding over the few years. But when I talk to housing authorities, I ask them, are you looking to reposition your assets? And sometimes I'll get the answer, not right now, we're being funded well. That my reply to them is always, when do you want to make that transition? When the funding goes down and you get locked in there, or when the funding's more and you can look at your ERP and all this stuff, lock that in so that you're based at the highest level possible. So that's what we're doing. We just did a RAD closing 2 weeks ago because we're trying to lock our money in at these higher rents. And that allows us to make the investment in the properties and also make the investment to make sure that all of our systems are where they need to be. So, as you go through this, you'll find not all vendors are the same when it comes to the products as far as your ERP stuff goes.
Oh, yeah.
My former employer just went through a long drug out switch on their computer service provider. They're not all equal. You got to really look at it, and you got to realize just because you've been with somebody for 20 years might not be where you need to be, and you need to look at what they're providing to you. Right now, we don't want our maintenance staff coming back to pick up work orders. They all have the capability now. We can push them out to them. If we know you're in a location, we have a property 40 minutes away. If you're there, I don't need you coming back to get a work order and going back. We need to be able to push this out and do everything digitally. We don't need that work order in paper ever. it type it in, it pulls the inventory, it goes into the system, and we're done. So there are a lot of limitations, but a lot of those limitations are on your thought, your visioning, and your planning. I truly believe you got a vision first. If you create your vision, bring your people together, plan for it, and thinking. We do a strategic plan every year that has a long-term, short-term, and really long-term where we want to be. Start thinking in those. Realize you're not going to get there tomorrow, but you can start getting that low-hanging fruit. And there's always going to be low-hanging fruit in an ever-changing IT world, especially.
Yeah. Sean, what in your new role? I know it's not a new role. You're taking an additional role with Naro. What's sort of your charge, and how are you going to spend the next 5 years on your term?
Well, I'm elected for 2 years as
Yes.
senior vice president. Then I'll run again for president. So it's a 4-year term with 6 more years on the board of governors. So, I get excited when Naro has everything I have in my life, to personally and financially, and anything else is to a large degree through Naro, its regions, and its state level chapters, because I've learned so much through them. When I've made moves or when I've needed to do something, because of the connections I've made through these organizations, I can pick up the phone and say, whether it's friends in San Diego or friends before I came to Knoxville or Augusta, Georgia, or wherever, how did you do this? There's nothing wrong with plagiarism as long as they know you're doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to invent something that doesn't work as well as something that you've already invented.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're going through this, I want to be able to bring all the minds together and make sure that everything's out there to make every housing authority in this country successful. And we're going to use STEAM and that energy and direction to make that happen. So for the next 2 years, I'll be following my friend George Guy. He'll be president. Hopefully in 2 years, I'll become president. And we will the key is to make our communities better, because the public housing agencies are community builders. We're economic drivers for our communities. If we provide the backbone and the workers for the people in this country. When you go downtown and you see a restaurant that is a 2-hour wait, but it's only half full, it's because our people is being priced out of living downtown. They can't afford to come to town to those areas to work. Yeah. So we got to be more cognizant on where we place housing and put people closer to work. We got to start advocating for that. We got to start advocating for transportation reform so that we can get people that live further away to where the jobs are. A lot of our people are one car breakdown or one car accident or one health incident away from not being able to get into work. So our people work, they want to work, but we need them to work where it benefits the community. And we got to start thinking of housing first and how we place people and give them the opportunities. I'm lucky. I'm directly across the street from Morristown West High School, a great high school. My largest 2 complexes are directly across the street. We have a great relationship with them. So we're able to educate. We're across the street from the community, from the TCAT, which provides services for our people. A lot of places aren't that lucky.
Yeah.
So, but we're looking at, we're a large industrial area. We need to put our people as close as possible to the jobs if you want to fill those jobs. It's not because people don't want to work. Sometimes they don't have the ability to get to work.
Yeah, and great comment by Leontine. Transportation is another layer to choice of housing, so it all comes together. You can't just provide one service and not another. And then we have an audience question. What educational initiatives are you deploying, or I guess, it should be deployed to help residents adopt to new technology or systems? Like, is it the housing authority's role, and where do you think that line is to educate your residents and what's up and coming?
We need to be the conduit. That's what we have the Resource Center. We provide internet access and computers there. We just had a resource fair at a ribbon cutting with over 20 vendors, whether it be other vendors in the area that have the technologies, that have the ways to put people in contact to it. So we don't have the expertise. I don't have an IT staff, but I have people like you who may come and vend in the future at these events, and we can provide training. We talk about things we provide. Smoking cessation is one. That doesn't apply to the vendors, but to what we're talking about. But we need to have all aspects to have well-rounded communities and well-rounded individuals. So we can provide the location, we provide the resources. If we can bring them all together, and it might be, just teaching someone how to work Excel. Excel's become so important. There's another opportunity with AI. You can tell AI, what you're wanting to do, and it'll fill in the Excel sheet for you. I haven't had the courage to do that yet, but
Do it.
That's risky, that Excel sheet. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But we're the conduit, and that's what we're trying to reestablish. COVID pulled apart those connections over the last 3 years. So we're in the almost manual process of putting those connections back together. And luckily, we've got a lot of people that are excited about this, and we think we'll be able to plug those in. But when you talk about education, we have what Ready by 6, HC Excel, operating out of our offices, out of our resource center to provide these. We provide the office for them. It's not, and we provide in that same building. We have AmeriCorps workers there. We provide food security there through Second Harvest and other people to come in and provide that. We provide a police substation there that this officer is just dedicated to our residents. So it's a holistic type thing that we're trying to grow back.
Sean, on that same note, how do you deal with those who are resistive to change? Maybe they're stakeholders, maybe they're residents, but they don't like change and they're resistive to technology. How do you handle that?
Maybe their staff. So, I tell people, I always look at them and say, change is good, change is inevitable. And with my staff, change is going to happen. So we start looking at ways, especially the people that are so intrinsic and used to being in that box, we start trying to push them against the edge of the box sometimes to say, and then all of a sudden their box gets a little bit bigger, and we change things on them and they don't necessarily know it. We also, with our residents, we try to do it incrementally and slowly and on their terms. We still send out our newsletter on a physical format because we want to make sure they get it and get the information. But we also provide it on Facebook. We provide it on our website. We provide it in different formats so that eventually we want to get to the point that people are either opting out of the paper side of it or we just can go away from it. All our applications are done online. Even if you have to come into the office, you think to drop off that pre-app, we set you down and have you do it online. We might hold your hand through the process, but we're increasing your digital footprint and your digital capabilities by doing that. So there's all kinds of little ways, we will hold your hand. We'll do what we can. We will provide the sources to you if you don't have that. So our next thing is we want to have, a kiosk right on site. Mm-hmm. So a lot of places are doing that. We don't have one yet. We keep looking at it, and we got to find something that works with our system. Yeah. Sometimes that's the issue. But everything we do is thought in the background of, the 3 C's for us: customers, community, and culture. So we got to think of, how we roll this out with those 3 C's and make sure that our elderly population, our non-English population, our population that doesn't necessarily have the educational background to understand some of this, that we have to teach them and hold their hand along the way. And eventually we'll get them there. The youth, and we've talked about that in a minute, they know this stuff.
Right.
Many years ago from now, when I'm gone, we'll be having some totally new conversation because putting an application in on your phone or whatever it is in the future would just be common sense and something we don't have to worry about.
Well, I think you and I will be AIs talking to each other.
Doing Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
If they're still around.
We have some comments. Speaking of AI, Anna Bennett talks about integration in housing and voice to talk for multilingual residents. Yeah, that's here today, right? You could instead of those 21 languages speaking people you need to employ, you can just have. I know it's not that personable, but you have to use what's in front of you, especially with the lack of labor right now.
Yep, and people think of reasonable accommodations as being ramps and handheld showers and whatever it is in the hard devices. But a
Hmm.
reasonable accommodation is for us to meet you where you are to make sure that you can get the data to us. You
Correct.
know, and so we're always looking at we use TDD and all that stuff and everything else to make sure that we don't want a customer and we won't have a customer turned down or that is not able to communicate with us if we have to go, and when I was in Knoxville, we had all kinds of different language barriers, and we worked with the different um, locales locally to make sure we always had someone that could communicate
Hmm.
with those. And same thing with the people that are hearing impaired or sight impaired.
Yeah. Megan, I know you had a burning question you wouldn't let me ask, so what is it?
No, I follow you, Sean, on LinkedIn, and I love I've loved watching your campaign. And one of the hashtags that you always use is housing matters. And I know how hashtags work, but what does that mean to you? Housing matters,
Well, just think about it. People don't think if you have financial capabilities, you don't even
Mhm.
think about your housing. You
Right?
got it, you can go home. What if you don't have it? How do you get to work? How do you, if you don't have a vehicle and you're living on the street? So it's got to be housing first. You got to have a place to lay your head at night. People, and you got to have a place to put your food. People that are tired or hungry or insecure can't get ahead. A lot of people will say, you know, you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and that's great in theory, but it all starts with housing. If we get people into housing and get them secure, that is that the final step? No, there's more to it, but housing is the key component. Then probably after that, food and transportation are next, and education. So we got this four-prong issue here, but when you pull any amount, it's going to fall. But the housing is the key component. That keeps you safe at night. You're out on the street
Mhm.
and you're sleeping in your car and the window's broke, or you're sleeping in the street. You don't have safety. You don't have security. You have food insecurity. So we got to get people housed. So housing matters. Housing is economic development. I was just looking at our figures today. Our people make, and I didn't run the numbers I meant to, but our people on average make about 17,000 a year. You take that 17 and multiply it by our 1,100 and some people. You know, that's all that money for the most part is paycheck to paycheck that's spent locally that supports our local businesses. You pull our 1,100 people out of this area, a lot of businesses are going to go out, and people don't think about that. When we have an application in to build a new $20 million, 20 million complex, that money will be spent here locally by providing the people that's going to work on that here locally, that's going to spend the money, that's going to buy the materials here locally for the most part. And it's going to just create, and that dollar is going to turn over 7 times. So we put $20 million into that. That's $140 million when you look at the data that comes back into the community. That doesn't include our other rad deals that this community we hope to have a 35 give or take $1 million investment over the next 2 to 3 years. That's a lot of economic improvement for this area that will be helpful not only to our customers but the community as a whole and their businesses. So without that economic development, a lot of this place is going to just start to suffer.
Hmm.
And once again, your passion for housing is evident, is coming through, and I want to thank you for your time today, Sean. I know we started late, but I'm going to let you have your day back. But we'll see you in New Orleans when you get crowned as the senior VP. No, you get a sash. No, you get a scepter.
So as long as I don't get run out of the room.
No, I'm looking forward to it because it's been a long time coming. And for those coming to Naro in October, we will be present there at a booth, and so I hope to see everybody and talk about what we can do for Naro, for public housing industry, and for your housing authority. Uh,
Yes, and I'll share the link to Naro
yeah,
just in case someone's interested. And Sean, is there anything else we can share for you to help you?
Just if anybody's interested in advancing affordable housing, advancing the conversation, you can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm always open to whatever I can do to help you. And because it's truly a group effort. When I see a housing authority having an issue, it reflects back on me. So we want to make sure that we're all in the same boat together. This country is all trying to figure out where we're at due to inflation and everything else. And we got to work together to make it happen, and just reach out, and we'll do what we can together.
Nice.
thank you, Sean. Thanks
you,
for
guys.
your time. Thanks for being a friend of the firm and for your great work.
Great.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you guys.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Have a good one.